In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to approach an enterprise customer for Microsoft Azure. Welcome to the channel, Journey to Cloud. This is Rahul. So let's get started on how to approach an enterprise customer for Microsoft Azure. Can you approach the customer in the same way you have been approaching the customer for selling server, storage, networking, or infrastructure in the past? Absolutely not. The game is completely different when it comes to IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service, and specifically when it comes to Microsoft or AWS or cloud, Google Cloud infrastructure. The pitch has to be completely different. The approach has to be completely different. And I'm going to talk to you about some of the practical examples which I think coming from my past experience of about 10-11 years of cloud sales, it should be able to help you going to the customer with a IaaS platform. And today we're going to talk about Microsoft Azure specifically. So if you are an enterprise salesperson or an account manager, and how you want to approach your customer for opening up the right opportunities for Microsoft Azure, what are the things to do? You cannot just go and talk about a particular product component of Microsoft Azure or a feature or a functionality or a benefit of that. I think the discussion should really start beginning from the fact that whether the customer has the right people, right stakeholders, and are they willing to have a discussion about the strategy of their organization moving to cloud. If that is not happening at an enterprise customer level, it's very difficult to strike a good, decent size of a deal, because you might end up getting a small piece of IaaS business like a backup all of a sudden because there was a fire. But that's not going to get you the big dollars. The big dollar deals, a much better way to work with the big customer is really about finding the right stakeholders and understanding whether they are willing to have a conversation with you around the cloud infrastructure and the roadmap as a strategy discussion for their organization. And you're going to facilitate that for them. So, but who are the right stakeholders which I'm referring to? It's the CIO, it's the CEO, it's the GM or the business guys. You know, the top management is the teams which is basically responsible to have a discussion. I'm not talking about having a server configuration or a storage configuration dialogue with these people. I'm talking about strategy. It's about how they see cloud and how they want to embrace the technology for their digital journey in the next 3 to 5 years from now. So that's the first piece which you want to do, and start looking at the right people and start having that discussion and dialogue or understand whether they want to have a discussion and dialogue at a strategic level for cloud with them or not. The next thing is when assuming that you get to these people, start putting that framework. And when I say you have to facilitate, you really have to facilitate, which means you have to talk to the CIO, CTO once, you have to talk to the CEO or the business director or the sales leader and in the separate dialogue, and then ask them the same typical type of questions. What do you see? How do you see technology? What is your business priorities, and so on. And then a point will come where you have a story to build up, and then you need to involve them into a common discussion where you can present that roadmap and talk about their long-term and a short-term and a long-term strategy for cloud and infrastructure as a service. And that's the starting point. That is exactly where you will start getting the buying in from these business stakeholders, because who is going to be the resisting team is the IT team. And you will keep breaking your head with the IT teams again and again, and there's no point about it. So it has to come from business guys. Business decisions, business strategies is going to drive your cloud strategy there, because that's how it works. If let's say the organization wants to expand overnight, or wants to go online in a retail business space, and they want to be prepared for a huge success, which they don't know how to predict it, then they need cloud. Then there is no discussions about it. They want to expand into a new territory much faster than the typical way. They need cloud, right? So a business decision will always be the first one to influence a strategy towards cloud. So try to get to the short-term and a long-term strategy. And when I say short-term and long-term strategy from a cloud perspective is really about how do you break things, what should be done in the next 3 to 6 months, and what should or the organization would want to do with respect to cloud in next 6 months to 1 year, or 2 years or 3 years. And that is a very good discussion to have. They may not be ready for a short-term projects, but then you still want to ensure that they experiment, they get comfortable and so on, and then start their long-term. Or they could have a short-term quick workload, quick wins, move something like rehost, just lift and shift, put few servers from local to the cloud and get started. And then there will be a long-term strategy saying that, okay, I'm going to re-architect my whole application, the way it works today, behaves today on cloud. So get to that short-term and long-term strategy agreed at the management level, and then you know that what's the pipeline you are looking at with this enterprise customer, what you need to do for the next 6 months, next 1 year, which vendor to engage, which teams to engage, which technical thing, how much to invest with this customer. Because if you are a cloud provider and you don't invest your time and money with this customer, you're not going to gain the benefits. When I say money, it's about really going and putting first few thousands of dollars in front of the customer, say, let's fire up something. Until you gain the confidence, I'll go and invest in the pilot phase. So these kind of investments, you really want to be prepared. And many times Microsoft would be happy to help with that investment through directly or through a distributor. So short-term and long-term strategy with the management, super critical at a high level, second step or start. Once you pass this stage, I think the next work which you need to do in this enterprise is with the IT folks, because IT will not resist then after once you have a strategy and direction from the business. And what I would strongly recommend here in this stage is to start preparing a list of workloads. And this is something which you can do. I'll leave a link of a spreadsheet which I recommend you to just follow that. It's a simple Excel sheet with some columns there. Start filling up the workload discussion, and that will typically help you on how do you take it up from there, right? So fill the sheet and you will find it's a nice guided framework to list down all the workloads, and also it will help you to prioritize which one to choose first to cloud and which one not to. So prepare a list of workloads the enterprise is using today. You need to look at workload, not servers. So if I'm saying email as a workload, an email could be running into 5 servers, 2 servers, 3 servers. That doesn't mean that it is 5 workloads. It's still one single workload. It's just about the application. So you need to find out how many workloads the customer is using today, and then put them into the right order. And that spreadsheet, which I'm going to list down in the description below, you will be able to see that this spreadsheet will help you to put them into the right order also. And the order should be in the priority, not from a business, but what is the right priority to get started to move this customer to cloud. And some of the factors which is there also in the spreadsheet, but I can just tell you is to consider in terms of priorities, whether the application is a fat application or web-based application. Very simple stuff, whether it's a client-server architecture or a browser architecture. If it is browser, no-brainer, that goes on to the first slot. And if you agree with the customer to move that application to the cloud, that's the application which is going to go first, not the fat application. Whether it's 1 tier, 2 tier, 3 tier architecture, what does it mean? Is it running in a single server with all database and application and everything? Then it's pretty easy, lift and shift, just create one more server, migrate everything, and it should be working fine. If it is 2 tier, which means database separate, application separate. If it is 3 tier, There's the engine, application engine separate, presentation layer, which is the application front end, and then there will be back end, which is the database, 3-tier architecture, and so more. Then that will affect the speed of decision to move to the cloud. Authentication, is it dependent on Active Directory? Does it have its own? Does it depend on any SSO? So those things will also factor what kind of application it is and how soon you can take a decision to move it on the cloud. Size of the data, of course, if it is 100 GB, that goes first. If it is half a terabyte, that goes second. If it is 2 terabyte, that goes third. So size of the total application data which needs to be moving on the cloud is also very, very critical and important. Then the last factor, I think the most important one, is the availability and the business side of it. So how many users are using? How many users are using it from outside? What is the RPO and RTO requirements of an organization? If they want it to be backed up instantly, or if they don't expect this application should not fail at any point in time, and so on. So depending on those priorities, it will be clear that the application should quickly move to cloud, or we can keep it for the later stage or not. So some of these key important factors have to be put in mind when you prepare this list, and then put them in the right order. And that's the starting point, because once you put them into the right order, you can then have a discussion with your customers, key stakeholders, saying that, hey, here is the full exercise which we did. Here are the 10, 15, 20 workloads which you guys use. The top 3 things which can move to cloud, short-term goal, 3 to 6 months, is 1, 2, 3. We can move it into short period with a minimum disruption, and you will get started to the journey of cloud. But the application workload 2, 3, or 4, 5, 6 requires a little bit of work, a little bit of planning, downtime, and so on. And this we can move into the next phase, which is going to be between 3 to 6 months or 6 to 9 months time frame, and we'll take care of things accordingly. And then some of the workloads might say it is not ready to move to cloud. We need to do a bit of re-engineering, recoding, redevelopment, or re-architecting of the application itself, and that would take probably a year or so. And that's how you put the roadmap. Once you have this in front of your customer, the business stakeholders, which is mapping to their strategy, then and then the next piece is about doing the homework and actually presenting that whole thing to the IT stakeholders also. It will become a solid pipeline for you with that enterprise customer. You will know exactly how much and how long you will engage with this customer, and how big the potential of Azure can come out from this customer. So that's how I feel you can approach to an enterprise customer. It's a very planned activity. It could take at least 1 to 3 months to get this whole strategy in place, right stakeholders in place, depending on how is your relationship and so on. So let me know if you have different approach. If you have something better, please mention that in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please like this video and share it and promote the channel. This is Rahul from Journey to Cloud, specifically for all our cloud channel partners and resellers and salespeople. So thank you.